Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David King.
I'm Fred Cilbrith.
And I'm Dave Ryan.
Welcome to another edition of Keeping It Real. As we start the show today, I also want to thank our viewers for tuning in each and every week, each and every night. And we really do appreciate that. We don't want to forget you guys. On tonight's show, we're going to talk about basically the campaign trail that's been going on around here. And sitting next to me is not only a guy that knows about politics, but he is a mayor candidate, Joe Ganim. Joe, thank you for being on the show.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It really is a pleasure. I mean, there's a lot of things you do in a campaign that you say is pleasurable and enjoyable. This, even though we're just starting, I can tell you it is. And I admire each of you and what you do here for all of us and getting the message out and allowing people to communicate. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. You know, speaking about the campaign trail, I want to go right in here. Is it hard to even, do a campaign trail? Like when you're, going to run for any kind of election, is it hard to okay, I got to set this up, that up, that, can you tell viewers home, what is that like to be, the work that goes into the running of a campaign trail?
There is a lot of work, and it's multifaceted with your attention having to be focused in so many different areas. Some of it is called politics, certainly, but really you got to think about what's important for the good of the city, and that's what you want to talk about. And in the process, you want to be able to connect with people or voters to communicate that, because you can be the greatest individual, you can have the greatest ideas, and you can ultimately be the greatest public official, in this case, mayor. But if you can't get elected because you can't communicate or because you're unable to convince people for all the right reasons to support you, then none of it really means anything. And I tell it to people every day. I said, this is great conversation, but it doesn't mean a thing. You may like what I say. You may think I'm a good mayor. You may think I did a good job before. But if you don't come out and vote, then it doesn't mean anything, because I'm never going to be able to do anything to help you or anybody in the city.
Well, that's very true, and we talk about that a lot when we talk about, the elections of any kind. Always want to encourage people to go out and vote and have your voice heard, because it's pretty much, it's up to you to make a difference. It's up to, the people at home and ourselves to make the difference. Everybody's always like, oh, politicians have the power, but the real power lies with the people that vote. And, so the people, really have to go out and, get their voice heard by voting, but besides that, Fred, do you have any questions?
I mean, I want to know what was your childhood like growing up?
Yeah, I was born in the north end of the city in the Lake Forest area on Frenchtown Road, one of 8 children. So we were fairly close in age. There was 8 of us within 10 years, and so we knew the neighborhood, the north end neighborhood, pretty well when I was growing up. And from there we moved to Easton, and I spent a lot of time growing up there. But it was a very good, very supportive family structure that allowed us to do what we thought was important in life, but we're also taught, if we had the ability, to try and give something back. And I think that's what led me into politics.
So did you get along with your siblings and your parents?
I did. You always have, you can imagine with 8 kids, somebody's going to fight with somebody.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I mean, but that comes and goes. I was the oldest boy, an older sister, and then everyone else was younger. So there's some, I don't know, stature and age, I guess, when you're growing up, right?
Right.
The olders kind of have a little bit more to say or whatever.
Right.
So I had that going. But sure, I did get along with everyone. And I have another brother. One of my brothers is also in public service. He's a probate judge, elected probate judge in the city of Bridgeport, Paul Ganim. Mm-hmm. One of my other brothers ran for state senate. Another one was on the zoning board in Easton. My father, actually, probably when I was very young, was also a candidate for mayor in the city of Bridgeport in 1961, I think it was.
Oh, a few years ago.
It is.
So
many more than we'd like to think about, right?
So it's safe to say, Mr. Ganim, that you pretty much been involved in politics since you were a child. I mean,
well, my dad was involved in politics, sure, and I got involved at an early age. I moved back to Bridgeport after law school. So I went to high school. I went to Joe Barlow High School and Notre Dame High School. And then I went to UConn. And after that, law school, University of Bridgeport Law School, and graduated from there. And I moved back to Bridgeport at that time to practice law with my dad in a family law practice, which was not just me, but my brothers, ultimately my brother George, my brother Ray, my brother Paul, my sister Mary and my brother Tom all joined that law firm as lawyers. So you can see, not only do I have a big family, but I got a big family of lawyers
And so you
all
have a lot
in
of
the
support.
Bridgeport area.
Yeah, quite a support system. And I do remember seeing the building on Main Street, Ganim,
Right.
across from the mall there. But one thing that I'd really like to ask you, though, I've seen you come up in the ranks in the 1990s, and you really rose Bridgeport out of the ashes. You built it into a beautiful city, and then even though you may have had some challenges along the way after that, I mean, you're rising above all these oppositions and all these things that you've been through. And I just want to know, how do you do it? Because you're really inspiring me by doing all this. This is a beautiful thing that we're witnessing here.
Well, no, I appreciate you saying that. And in some ways, it is. It was about after having been leading the city, as you said, we took it out of bankruptcy. We held the line on taxes. We built the arena, the ballpark. We built Steel Point. We did the beautification projects. All this downtown area, the brickwork and the lights. Yep. We just moving fast, knocking down blight, cleaning up the city, adding cops, adding 100 cops, making it safer, community policing, after school programs, improving the schools, building new schools. But then after all that, and then meeting some challenges, certainly now coming back, a lot of it was really being inspired by other people.
That's
and
great.
Seeing some of the challenges that people face in the city. I had been, right before this, I was working with a large company and saw very little of what some of the challenges still remained in the city. And things had not gotten better since I left. They'd gotten worse.
Yes, that is true.
They've gotten a little tough lately.
That's true. And, like Cass said, these guys are from Connecticut. I live right here in the center of town. And I do want to also thank you. I didn't, folks, I just learned something new. I work at the arena and the ballpark that I just found out you helped build. So thank you. And I've been there since I was in high school. That was my first job, and I'm still working there. So thank you.
There was nothing. That was a burnout building. And we came with the vision to say,
I remember.
Wait a minute. How do we improve the quality of life in Bridgeport? How do we do it by trying to improve the downtown and create family entertainment and something that's good, clean fun that we don't have here? And then we said, well, we can start at the south end of downtown, and let's knock down Blight, which was really a place where there was a lot of drug activity and prostitution. Let's knock it down. Let's use the money wise. Let's knock it down and put something positive there. And we had to actually go out and find a baseball team that didn't exist before, and created a new league called the Atlantic League, which that is.
Okay.
And it's unaffiliated. And so we did that. We had to get the money from the state, and we put some of the city money in. And then it was so phenomenally successful, we said, what else can we do? Everybody was talking about a civic center in the city of Bridgeport, some big arena. So we decided to build the arena and bring in the circus and bring in basketball, Fairfield University basketball, and all the other entertainment and hockey. And so we got a minor league hockey team, and people just loved it. And so the idea was to keep marching up Main Street and keep rebuilding, and that's kind of what I want. A lot of that hasn't continued, and that's the kind of thing I want to see happen.
I would, as a resident of Bridgeport, and just like the viewers at home, I would definitely like to see the rest of Bridgeport, reopen. There's a lot of, if you go to the back part of downtown, it's still like there's some abandoned buildings that are not working. Although way before I was born, I've heard that all of Bridgeport downtown were like open and worked, and I would like to be able to see that, not only in history but up to date now, because I still see that there's a lot of potential right here in downtown Bridgeport. Not to mention the rest of Bridgeport that can really, go further. Since you've been away in Bridgeport, we have a big homeless problem. The crime has increased, and in the last few weeks, it has even gone even higher. One of my questions that I definitely if you were to get back the seat of being the mayor, what is your plans to maybe change some of that, or I guess do a whole new rebuilding? I mean, what is your...
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be addressed. One is there has to be a clear vision with competent leadership, not only in the mayor's office, but in every key department in city government. Frankly, without being negative on anybody, that doesn't exist right now. In the police department, you've allowed, I hope through, I don't know why, but clearly through incompetence, you've allowed the manning levels of the Bridgeport Police Department to drop by over 100 officers. to its lowest level since before I was mayor back in the early
Right.
90s.
Okay.
And so what do we have as a result? You can say, oh, Joe, those are just numbers. We're getting the job done. Well, let me tell you, the men and women who serve on that department are trying to get the job done. But when you have 9 people shot in Trumbull Gardens and 1 killed, and the 2 more homicides in the past week, and your homicide rate, the amount of people killed in this city, unfortunately, is double what it was last year at this time.
Right.
We've got to ask the question, are we actually adequately providing the public safety that's required and the people of the city of Bridgeport are entitled to? And I think if you ask that question, individuals or collectively to this city, you get a resounding no.
Right.
Exactly.
So I want to add, as I did before, and I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I had to set up the answer is add at least 100 police officers as fast as we can. I know how to do it. I know what needs to be done. I've done it before. And what will that do? It'll give us a greater police presence. They need to decentralize and make the neighborhood safer and start community policing and develop a better relationship between the community, each of our communities, and the department itself. That's just one area that needs to be
Exactly.
fixed.
I mean,
Right.
Exactly. I feel like, the mayor and the people should be able to communicate with each other as one, and you don't see that. And because of that, I feel I've seen Bridgeport almost rebel against their mayor. There's something to be said when you have so much crime going on right around your election window, and if you're the mayor at this time, that says a lot. People are like rebelling against right when they kind of like saying, "I want you gone," and well, I'm gonna do all this crime so that way you don't get reelected or whatever. But I mean, I just want to see change. I lived in Bridgeport practically my whole life. I graduated all my school years in Bridgeport from elementary to high school. I have seen Bridgeport just keep going down and down. As I grew up, Bridgeport went down, and like the taxes. I've seen more people lose their homes, foreclosure or whatever. I remember having a discussion last night with Fred here about how not everybody's homeless is because they were on drugs or anything. A lot of times, a lot of people are homeless, especially in Bridgeport, is just because they couldn't afford to pay the taxes on their houses. They
couldn't afford to pay the mortgage.
And the taxes just keep continuing going up to a point where it's hard to make a living. And the majority of people in Bridgeport are rent payers more than homeowners.
Right.
It'd be nice to see more people able to own houses, but they can't afford to own houses, and most of them can't even afford to pay rent. And I know that because I live on my own, and it's tough. It can be tough at times just for one person by themselves to pay rent, But I heard, back in the 90s, the taxes were lower, and at the time, you were at the helm of that. What is your take on the taxes being through the roof?
I think, unfortunately, is the highest taxed community in the country right now is named Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
The highest taxed community in the country. So you can say, well, somebody can try and take the view, well, it just makes it a little more expensive, but, that doesn't really matter. No, it doesn't matter. You made a very good point. It has an impact on so many different aspects of the quality of life, and people being able to maintain, before you get to losing your home, people being able to maintain a decent quality of life for themselves or to raise children.
Right.
That's like bad. That's like not good. But then it gets even worse, where if you get to the point where you can't even afford to maintain your house, as you said, then what do? Maybe you lose your house and you can't even own a home anymore. The American dream. Many people move to Bridgeport as where they start, and they can afford to buy a home, and this is the first step in living. We call it the American dream, right?
Right.
Right, owning
Buy a home, have a place to live at your own. And so they lose their home. And then, as you said, it even gets to the point where people could end up going, okay, you can't live a good quality life, and then maybe you lose your home, maybe you can become a renter, or maybe not. Or maybe you're to the point where you have a homeless problem. So it bleeds into everything. And then what else happens? You have more crime.
Well, I'm about to say that you have more crime. And the biggest crime you have is not people, 45, 50. The crime is coming from 18, 16, and that ties into where the school system comes in, because you have the simple fact that now, like we just said, we have a homeless problem. We have, finance problem. Well, now the kids that see their parents struggle every day take that and a burden to them and feel like I got to do something. they can't go to work because they're too young, or they just can't find a job, because that's an issue right here in Bridgeport of finding jobs. So they go out and do crimes. So instead of going to school, they're going to go sell drugs, and then they go to school, and school becomes not a place to learn, but a place of business. Meaning, in third period, I can go sell instead of going to learn, because I need the crowd in the hallway to make my sales.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff that really, to me, it needs to change, because you have more, especially young people. We always said they're the future. We are the future. But you have a lot of the future that can't read, that are not educated. So it's like they're set up to fail. And then the result, what does the parents do to try to save that? They leave Bridgeport. And that just hurts in general, because nobody wants to live in Bridgeport. When, like you said, at once, Bridgeport was a great place to be.
And the image thing is important. You're right. The image helps retain property values and keeping taxes down. I kept taxes down. I made it a priority 10 years in a row. This administration, for the past 8 years, has raised taxes every year except an election year. Almost 50%. So if you own a home and you were paying $4,000 in taxes,
Right.
When Finch administration started, you're paying probably $6,000 in taxes now, and your services aren't any better. Your schools aren't any better. Matter of fact, there's less cops, and the schools are worse.
And let's not, I'm going to let Fred talk after this, because I know me and you have been playing bingo back and forth. But I mean, and not to mention, people always say, well, that affects people that that owns homes. No, it affects us that pay rent. Right. And I say that because if you own the complex that the people rent in, when your taxes go up, you raise their rent to keep your property. So even those who are paying rent is very tough, because they're paying $750, $1,000, and I'm not talking 5-6 bedrooms. I'm talking for a 1-bedroom studios apartment.
Exactly.
Just to make ends meet. And a lot of young people, that maybe have 1, 2, 3 kids, are living in a studio apartment because that's the only thing they can afford. Yeah. Which it doesn't give them a lot of room.
No,
it doesn't give them really enough for 2 kids. But it's all they can afford, and that's because the taxes continue going up. So what do? We're going out, you're trying to work 2, 3 different jobs, and even still, it's like, I can't do this anymore. So I got to get out of here. That's the first place that we always say, I got to get out of here, because I can't afford it. And no matter how hard I work and how many jobs I do, I just can't do it. And then, the cost of food, and then the crime, and then you're getting robbed. All that hard work, you're starting to get a little ahead, and then...
Right.
You're getting robbed.
There's a setback.
I mean, for me, I'm personally, I'm tired of it. I mean, Fred, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Dave, I'm sorry.
I got 2 questions for you, Mr.
Go ahead.
I went to school in Bridgeport back when I was like 5. So from like 5 to 9, I was in Bridgeport, and the schools weren't that bad, but like they were a little on the downside. But what would you do as far as helping the school system? And bettering the school system in Bridgeport.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what I did do, and then I'll tell you what I intend to do. Back when I was in, we worked collectively with the Board of Education, with the parents, and we looked at ways. We took the objective criteria and just found out where we were, and decided we were going to make specific targets to improve them. What I mean exactly is, we looked at the percentage of students we looked at our dropout rate. How many students were dropping out before they graduated? Now you look more at, actually you're looking at the eighth grade dropout rate, which is very telling now too.
Yes.
But it used to be the percentage that dropped out before. So percentage that dropped out, percentage that graduated, percentage that went on to college or to higher education. Those are all. You look at those objective criteria and say, are we succeeding? Are we meeting the challenge? And whatever that was, it wasn't good enough until you get 100%. And you're never going to hit 100%. I mean,
right.
Greenwich might hit 100%. Westport might hit 100%. But very, very few. So your goal was you'd never meet your goal, which is fine. But you'd always be striving to improve, to push. Right. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How do we keep kids in school? Kids, young adults, adults. How do we keep them in school? So we go back and not with this combative attitude of it's the administration, meaning the city hall, versus the Board of Education versus parents. You never win with that.
Thank you.
You never win with that. Well, how do you win? You win by sitting around the table as opposed to across the table. You win by opening the floor up to creative ideas that good-minded people, although from different points of view and perspectives, can agree on. You take the best of those, those that make the most sense, that have the most credibility, whether they're backed by studies, whether they're backed by local educated individuals or people that have experience, and you agree on an agenda, small steps, in a school district that's as challenged as Bridgeport is, with as many difficulties. We speak 57 languages in the school district, 22,000 students, the largest school district in the state. You have you think about that. And you have kids coming from broken homes where they either have a single parent, if they're lucky, or a grandparent.
Yep.
Okay? And when they leave school, from the time they leave school to the time, in many instances, they go back, they've left their probably safest and most structured environment, where they know they get a meal if there's a breakfast plan there, where they know they have a place to go that's pretty safe,
Right.
where they know they're not going to get interrupted or intruded because in some of the housing projects or elsewhere, the housing is just inadequate and frankly despicable for respectful even for individuals who live there. So the short answer is work with the people that are in place now and those that will be there when I get there to agree an agenda for solutions and they're incremental steps, judged by objective criteria that we've talked about. How many of are making it through, and what are some of the challenges? What are we doing with things like special education?
Thank you.
What are you
exactly.
doing? What do you do with someone who doesn't have everything going for him and now and maybe needs a little extra help? How are we meeting that challenge?
Right.
And what's the answer? And you really got to start with all of that at once. Unfortunately,
I always said, I remember saying to Fred once when you talk about education, I think it'd be nice to see all people at least have a chance to go to college. And when you mentioned special ed, I said to Fred once, there should be some kind of adult version of special ed, maybe even in college. Maybe they're not right there in the high classes like everybody else, but just to be in the environment of the college is a lot to them. Even if when they get on stage, they graduate, they get a trade. Maybe they don't get the degree, but they get a trade that says they can go get a job at, I don't know, Nissan and build cars or something. But for them and their parents, that will be, they reached a life goal. And you know what? They'd be proud of that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the state of Connecticut, through other means, such as like on Facebook and whatever, I've seen some postings on different states around Connecticut, around the country. Like Florida, for example, is offering free college education. There are states around in the country that are offering free college education. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't understand quite how it works. It's something to do with grants, I suppose. I haven't researched it, but it's a wonderful thing. I'd like to see it, you look into that.
One of the problems we have here, like we just said, the taxes, because just to go to college cost me more than when I pay for my rent. So,
and folks, if I wasn't on
if I can't
financially,
pay for
I
my
wouldn't be
rent,
going to college.
the kids are like this. If you're a young guy or a young woman getting out of high school, if I can't pay my rent, I'm not going to try to go to college.
Right, exactly.
That's your mindset.
Yeah.
If I can't even pay my rent, if I can't buy bread on the table, what I look like trying to go sit in class when I can't? Because remember, you got to pay to be in class. You got to pay for the books. Then you got to pay to get there.
It's a big problem that's going on right now in this country. We're behind the rest of the world in education, and we need to have some people look into that.
I mean, I did hear something about President Obama offering a 2-year college if you keep a certain
I think I heard something about that too, Fred. Yeah.
Level or something.
Yeah, there is. I know our daughter had gotten some extra money for keeping a certain grade level. I know there's types of incentives. She's at UConn, but even if you're not, let's just call ourselves. Let's say even if you have income, let's say you're making enough to pay for it. It's a lot of money.
It is.
Even UConn, which is a state school, or any of the state or universities, Southern, Central. And it's just astronomical, the cost. So yes, we need to at least on the local level, with regards to primary, secondary schools, high schools, provide the platform for individuals so that they have the opportunity. I mean, it's a constitutionally guaranteed right to. Education is not one of these flyby things that somebody came up with. No. Everybody's entitled.
Right.
And there's nothing that distinguishes an individual from. I use Greenwich as an example because it's the richest community.
Yes.
They don't have a right to a better education than we do in Bridgeport.
That's right. They don't.
It's the same right.
I mean, I remember when I started Housatonic, it was like probably like 300 for a class. Now it's like over 6.
Yeah, exactly.
For one class,
and that's community college, so it's over.
That's the
6.
least expensive.
That's community
Yep.
college.
That's
But
the
That's
cheapest
not a
college there is.
college.
Well, Fred, what you're saying right there is true. Now, just imagine if you live low income, 600's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just to attend college.
And Housatonic, by the way, is a beautiful,
It is.
state of the art.
It is.
And you don't remember it, and just tell you, we moved that downtown. That was over on the east side in a factory. It was a good school, but it's a much better school. It's become a star of the state system because of the improvements that have been made there for the years. And I'm glad you had the opportunity to attend there.
I mean, I'm still going. I mean, I graduate by next spring, but
Wonderful.
yeah.
I want to just say before, I know we're going to run out of time. One thing I think it's important to say, which we talked about, was for all of this stuff. And, you know, I'm running for mayor, obviously, and others are running. But the point of, yes, I want you to vote for this person or that person. The point is for people, for any of these things, people have to, if you want change, or if you don't want change, whatever you want. One of the other basic rights that we have is the right to select who will be our elected officials, who will run government at a local, state, and federal level.
Right.
And in this instance, I believe one of the most important, certainly one of, I could argue the most important level is local level. Why? Because we deal with the needs right here, face to face with individuals, whether it's a school district, whether it's the police department, whether it's the roads that need to be paved, whether it's a sewer system, whatever it is, it's local. So I'd ask people to vote. I'd ask them to recognize that there's an important election coming up on September 16th, to register to vote, to use that right and that opportunity to say something. But you can't say it verbally. You got to go in a voting booth and say it.
Right.
If you're in favor of someone, vote for them. If you're opposed to somebody, vote against them. Of course, without that, our system just doesn't work.
Exactly. Just get out and vote.
Yeah.
And there's ways to get out and vote. If you are not able to get out of your home,
Oh, good point.
just go ahead. Mr.
Well, I was going to
Ganim.
say you can vote by mail. You can call
can.
any of the campaign headquarters. You can call the registrar of voters, and you can say, I need an absentee ballot, or I need to be able to vote by mail.
That's right, yep.
Or we'll provide rides. People will do that. My campaign will provide rides, but we want people to have access. They can call and say, I need an absentee ballot application. You can vote in the privacy of your home. Nobody can touch that ballot but you, and you have a right, if you're unable to, for sickness, handicap, whatever the situation is. Please
Right.
do that.
Definitely. I mean, first of all, we're coming to the end of the show. Ganim, I want to thank you again for coming on the show.
We appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, sir.
You guys are great.
People
Absolutely.
like Ganim said, go out there, have your voice heard, because only you, rather you like a person or don't like a person, can make that change. Nobody else can do it to you. If you need rides, they got people to do that for you. But at the end of the day, you got to get up and you got to find a way to make your voice heard. So with that said, we're going to close out here. I'm David King.
I'm Dave Ryan.
I'm Fred Cilbrith.
And Joe Ganim, thank you all.
Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good night.